Hello, my friend, and welcome. This is your moment. I'm Katarina Miletic, and you are listening to the podcast that will challenge you to think with your soul and believe that your only power is inside you. Hi, Linda.
Hi, it's so awesome to be here.
Thank you, and welcome to This Is Your Moment. This is your moment, dear Linda, and I'm so happy and thrilled to welcome you to this platform. We share so many things in common, as we have discovered during our short friendship. And I think, one of those big things that we do share and that we have in common is our love of podcasts. We obviously like to talk to people. We like to share our experience. And then there are a whole lot of other interests that we also do have in common. I know that the audience of this podcast will just fall in love with your personality, as I have.
Thank you.
So I know it's early for you, and it's afternoon here for me. And I just want to stop and appreciate you for coming on early in your day for this interview.
It is a pleasure.
Thank you. It means a lot that you are here, truly. And I wanted to honor sustainability today. I didn't have my big lights switched on, so I'm happy that I could use the natural daylight here. So if we can start perhaps by sharing what made you passionate about this subject. When did you become interested?
That's a very interesting question, because it is over the past year that I've actually reflected back to see when this journey began into wanting to be a little bit more responsible for the environment around me. And there was one memory that came to mind. We used to travel to British Columbia, which is where my grandmother used to live on the West Coast. I'm in the center of Canada, so it's a 2-day drive. And in the late 60s, I believe, the 70s, early 80s, the province had this program where they put these garbage bins on the side of the highways. But they were very unusual because it was the time of exploration into space and sending the man to the moon. They created this orbit bin, which was like an orb, a white orb with a little hole in it. Well, it was actually quite big, so that when passersby on the road, they could throw their rubbish into this orbit bin. And they would do the countdown like they did for a space launch. They would go 10 seconds to orbit, and then they'd have the 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All of a sudden there was this orbit bin on the side of the road, and people would pull over and throw it in the bin. So I believe that is the start of my journey into that part of the world, because it was really annoying when I would see people throw things out the windows of the cars. And although I don't see it as much anymore, I still do see it, and it still annoys me like it did then. And then there was other little things that my mother did, like when plastic first started becoming as big as it is now. I think when my mother was younger, she used to wash them out and reuse them. So it wasn't a plastic bag was not necessarily discarded after the first use. She also grew a garden and also composted, although not in the way we do now. Like I've got a big compost bin, but she actually used to dig a hole in the garden and just dump scraps in there. And in the winter, she would still have this place in the garden. So I believe some of it was taught, some of it was learned, and now I want to just give my story about why it is important for us to do our best to conserve both the planet, the environment, and the animals that live on it, including us.
Absolutely. Very important subject to be incorporated into daily life, I think. And I know for one that I'm grateful that my grandparents lived on a farm, and that they made use of everything. Nothing was discarded or unwanted. Everything was reused and recycled. And when you could use it no longer, you found something else for it. Like if a pot had a hole, I remember my grandmother planting, lovely petunias or summer flowers into these pots with nice like polka dots on them or something. They always looked nice with colorful flowers in the summer. So nothing was dumped, and organic waste obviously was recycled and made into compost. So it's a subject really close to my heart, and it is nice to have the opportunity to share this in the form of stories that we have lived, or to try and teach with our experience what the way of life, isn't it?
Yes, and I think our generation has had the benefit of being a bit of a bridging generation, a bridging generation from people who worked in factories and worked in farms and worked in industry and things like that. And we saw how much they had to work and how resourceful they were in everything. And then we're the bridging generation who has one foot in the past and one foot in the future with all the technology and everything that's coming up and that continues to emerge and make us more efficient, better. I'm not sure. I think there's a lot to be said about some of the practices of the past, but I also believe that the technology of the future is going to assist in resolving the issues that we have surrounding a lot of the problems, particularly with everything from plastic pollution to and expanding marine park protection to restricting overfishing and finding different agricultural practices that are better, not just for the planet, but also for the animals that we're harvesting for food.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. And I think that is a big doorway into how we go into the future, because we need generations that are going to be interested in, perhaps with aid of this modern technology, how to work the land, how to make friends with nature. And then with that comes caring for everything, comes caring for animals, comes more caring for ourselves and for our environment, wherever it is that we live. So I am absolutely looking forward to this next chapter in our lives, because I think that our consciousness has evolved enough to know that things that were done perhaps 30 years in the past are no longer acceptable. Right. So, and I think the younger generations are also smarter. They're coming into a new way of thinking.
Yes, they are definitely becoming a little bit more conscious about the things that are done. And there are young ones, and quite a few of them, that are pioneering new sort of, just where they're creating their own unit of people and group of masses of people, and making a change and wanting to make a change and rallying for that change.
Absolutely. Creating a movement around this subject, I think it's much needed. And I can see a lot of people getting excited about growing their own vegetable, like even if they have a balcony. All you need, as you know, it's a bit of sunshine and some pot with soil, and you just give it a bit of love and attention, and see something that you can produce yourself. Very satisfying, isn't it?
That is exactly, because you see something planted in the ground, whether it's a seed or a little plant, and then you watch it grow with nurturing, sun and water, and just making sure that you pull out the weeds so that they get their water. And yes, eventually it will grow into my proverbial rosy red warm tomato.
Lovely. That reminds me that we met through a storytelling class that we both attend, and I just love listening to your stories. They're always full of this wonderful images, like the juicy tomato. I will never forget. We all had our mouth was watering just thinking about the taste.
Well, right now the time is almost for planting here. We have another month and then can start planting outside. And I'm looking forward to even more this year, not only because I always plant tomatoes, because that is something that we will eat as long as we have them, right? We have toasted tomato sandwiches every day once they're bloomed. But I also want to get back into sustainability a little bit and talk about other plants that I want to plant in my garden that I don't already have. And those are native Manitoba plants. So those are going to be plants that will be food for butterflies and bees and birds, because it is really important that we also maintain the natural habitat of a region in order to maintain the animal insect community that thrives on those things. And I know there's been a lot of talk about bees and, you know, them not having as much as many flowers or plants to go to pollinate. And then there's other issues with radio waves, but I'm just going to work on what I can do, which is planting indigenous plants to attract these insects. And in past years, it's been successful. I've had monarch butterflies actually seen the caterpillars and eating the milkweed, and then growing their chrysalis around them and being transformed into these beautiful orange and black butterflies. And then I have some purple plants that have, or purple flowers, and sometimes I can just see swarm of bees on them, and that brings so much joy. I look at them and I can stand staring, watching this bumblebee and that bumblebee just moving from one flower to another. It's just amazing. And we know we need them. Absolutely. Because the bees will not only pollinate the flowers that we have, but they will also go into my back garden and make sure that those tomato flowers have been pollinated as well. Which is why I think the bees are very important.
Absolutely. And they're so cute as well. I love seeing them in my garden. I have a small outdoor space here, but I'm lucky because it's joined with the communal gardens, which is like a little park. So you have your private bit, and then you have this big communal garden with big trees, which is rather nice. And inside my garden, I have acer plants. I have hydrangeas, which are my favorite.
Those are beautiful.
Yeah, they like water, and as you know, it rains a lot here. So I'm growing olive trees as well. I have 2 olives and a bay leaf that seems to thrive, and lavender. And that is what attracts bumblebees. And I have the lavender in the corner, and every time when I take my fresh washing to hang it outside, I hear them buzzing around me. These lovely, majestic bumblebees. I really like them. Like, love seeing them around that lavender plant. They're gorgeous.
And I'm sure it smells wonderful between the fresh laundry and the lavender and the bees buzzing. That creates a whole amazing image for sure.
Lovely. If I could call on your memory to tell us a little bit about your travels and the places that have inspired you to perhaps seeing a new way of life, or something that that you saw on your travels that you thought, This would be a really nice addition to my lifestyle.
My first trip, I was quite young. I went to Australia for the first time. I was leaving for 6 months. I went all on my own. It was a couple years after graduating high school. And this is a trip I had dreamed of since I was perhaps 12 years old. I'm not exactly sure what drew me to Australia. I am thinking that it might be because one of my teachers was going on a teacher exchange. And then, of course, I probably did some research on it, thought, oh my gosh, that's a cool place to go. And indeed it was. And I would say the biggest overarching lesson of that particular trip was people. And everything that people have to offer. Now that goes everything from the Indigenous people of Australia and sort of the conflicts, the cultural conflicts between sort of the settlers there and the settlers and the Aboriginal people. And I related that to the same issues that we have here in Canada. Being there, I was more objective because I'd never been there before. And I was able to look at the situation more objectively so that when I came home, I also became more objective about the situation here. So that was a great lesson. And then the fellow travelers that I met along the way came from all different countries and worlds. And the most amazing thing about being a backpacker is that you tend not to talk about the little things.
Right.
Like, oh, the weather is nice. Yeah, we can see that. we get deep and they tell you not to talk about politics and religion and things like that. But those are actually the big things that we did talk about. And it was not a debate. It was not an argument. It was just the act of listening, absorbing, and just being open to different lifestyles, different beliefs, and things like that. So that was the overarching theme of my first trip. I met people, like I say, from all over the world with different nationalities, different faiths, different political alignments, different situations that they had grown up in. So that would be the biggest lesson of my first trip.
That's an amazing lesson. And seeing that I threw a curveball there at you, you didn't know I was going to ask you that. I mean, you delivered pretty awesome answer. If you asked me the same question, I think wherever I traveled, it was predominantly and always people that I met there that made this lasting impression on me. And that I could see that even though we were culturally different, that there were things in our lifestyle that were completely different, yet in those same conversations about things that matter to all of us, and this is absolutely undivided. This is across everyone I met from every single place on earth, from Nepal to Tanzania to here in Europe and Serbia, where I'm from. It's always those experiences in life, childbirth and death of a parent, and marriages and first day in school, those kind of things that absolutely unite us. And we have deep, profound experiences connecting to those things that we all share, that we all live through.
That is very true. That is so true. Although I have to say that the natural world comes a very, very close second to that. I mean, that was my first trip. And I also remember arriving in Fiji the first time and snorkeling for the first time, seeing a kangaroo for the first time, seeing a lion and an elephant for the first time in the wild. I mean, my heart stops when I even think about those magnificent creatures, from the whale shark to a vulture to a lion cub, all those things. But then there's also the natural beauty of nature and the land formations, the rainforests, the savanna, the desert. There's just so much, the mountains. And I will just, there is one spot in South Africa that I remember standing there, and I could hear somebody sort of shouting, and I was thinking, oh my, this is a place of peace. It requires silence to actually absorb it all. It's called God's Window. And you're standing at the top of a mountain, and it's like a crater that comes around you, but it's all lush. It's got lots of greenery. But then there in the distance, there seems to be this little opening, and you can see flat for as far as you can see. And that picture, I can still see it as clear as that day, that the vibrant colors from the greens to the gravel to the black of the rock, and then in the distance to sort of the faded hues of grass and wheat. It likely wasn't wheat, but that's the color that it was. And just the sun shining over there and coming through. It was just amazing.
Amazing. And I think nature is amazing in every single detail. In every part of the world, there are things that absolutely awe-inspiring when you find yourself surrounded by nature, right? We have perhaps made our, cities and concrete too prevailing for our life. We dwell in those places, not leaving them often enough to be surrounded by nature completely, because then you feel this immersion and you feel belonging.
I have to say, though, that I do think that being locked up as we have been for just over a year now, I do feel that people are getting out into those green spaces within their communities. And like you say, the gardens of London, for example, those are amazing. That some of them are huge, even around the whole community. They're beautiful. And I can walk to a beautiful park and a short drive to a city park that is really big with lots of flowers in the summer. And so I do think that perhaps this whole global change is also shifting our perspective on when we look outside and we go outside and we appreciate those things more because we're actually enjoying them now.
Exactly. We are present in that moment, and it might have been brought out of necessity. We were just suddenly close to a certain area where we live, and we couldn't go wider than, I don't know, 5 kilometers perimeter or something like that. But yes, we are so fortunate to have those green areas here. I think definitely that is a big silver lining that we found in all of this, that we feel closer perhaps with families and closer within our community as well.
Yes, very much so.
That is nice. I really have like several possibilities where I would like to take the conversation. I know you have keen interest in housing, in music, and your voice is so musical. I love listening to your voice, and perhaps maybe that's the best way. If you tell us a little bit about music being part of your life, and how does that feel?
Some of it is memories that were told to me, and others are my own memories because. Apparently my father, who passed away when I was 6 years old, was a big singer. So he always sang around the house and with his family members. And I also remember my maternal grandmother, who we used to go see and go visit. She also loved to sing. And sometimes even if she would go to church and sing, she may not know the words to the hymn, but then she'd make them up just because she wanted to sing. So that is something that was always a part of my life, I guess. And then I always wanted a piano.
Mm.
And unfortunately, when my father passed away, that made any possibility of getting a piano impossible.
Mm.
So when I turned 18 and had a job and was able to finance my own musical instrument, I decided to take up the guitar, which in retrospect was probably the best thing for me to do, because that also allowed me to take it on my travels. So very often when I was backpacking in Australia and when I was living in Europe as well as a backpacker, I always had a guitar with me. And although I don't play it as much now, I've kind of moved from guitar to percussion. I now play hand drums because that is something that I always wanted to play the bass guitar, but never got into it. And then when I discovered the djembe or the cajon or the congas, it was kind of like, oh, that's a whole new world, because that is part of music that you actually feel in your heart, the beat of the drum. And perhaps that's why I wanted to play the bass, to give that inside feeling of the beat. So yes, I've gone from guitar to percussion, and I've always sung. I remember in school I was in musicals, I was always in the choir. And when I became adult, I sang with the radio and with my guitar. And I now play with the praise and worship team at church. I sing with them, but I also sing with an acoustic guitar group, which is anywhere from 15 to 25 people who are playing acoustic instruments, and most of them are playing guitars, and I'm playing the percussion, and we sing campfire songs. So our name is called the Campfire Junkies because we love those campfire songs. And so, of course, we haven't been able to practice, but some of us in the group still get together by Zoom calls once a week, just to touch base and make sure that we stay connected with one another. So again, it's kind of another family of music that we've created through this acoustic guitar group that is led by an amazing musician and business owner. Mark owns a local music store that's, believe it or not, it's a sole proprietor, and he's owned the music store for 37 years. He started right out of high school, and he is still doing that. So he's just kind of the pillar of the community in the music area. So that's kind of my quick overview of the music side of things. And then, of course, my daughter has started playing violin at the age of 4. And she has also moved from the violin to the stand-up bass. And then in school, she played the bassoon. And then through her teen years, she decided to take up the guitar and start singing. She has a beautiful voice. And she was actually releasing her first record next week. So that's really exciting, because that's, again, a lifetime of musical practice. Like 18, she's only 22, right? She's been playing music for 18 years, and this is the first label release where she's done everything from singing and producing and putting it all together. And we are just so excited to see it come to fruition, because this really is, again, a bridge from all the practice that she's put into place, and now it's going to the next stage. It's kind of cool. It's exciting to see it from that perspective as well.
Congratulations to your daughter. And I love how music has played big part of your life, and how it connects generations. And as you said, I mean, it is a bridge in our own life, and also a bridge with our past, and with people who are close to us and close to our heart, and still here with us in spirit as well. So
yes. And then it's a language that connects us with others as well, with strangers. You know, we could be sitting in a venue perhaps not today, but sitting in a venue and enjoying this live music, because I just love watching live music as well. And it is a connection between other people, just to see how we all absorb this particular music or venue and each other.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that. I love how all various forms of art connect us. Yes, they really definitely help us bridge that gap between, and they open the conversation. Even when we don't speak the same language, they can be that thread that ties us together. That is lovely,
Yes.
Linda.
I like those words too, the ties that bind us together. I love those expressions.
I know sometimes it's lovely to notice how the words are inspired when they come to you, and you think of a word, but you're thinking, no, there is a word that is more true. This is the word that wants to be expressed right now. So because to me it's all like we are fabric of life. We are threads that make and hold everything. So as much as the stars and the moon, the trees, we are also part of that fabric of life.
Do you know that a song just came to me from those words that you say? And I keep talking about how that happens when I'm in a conversation and words of a song come to me. There's a Carole King song, Tapestry.
Right.
My life has been a tapestry of rich and royal hues. Mm-hmm. And that kind of is the tapestry of ourselves as an individual. Mm-hmm. And the tapestry of humankind as a whole. Mm. And I just have this image of a beautiful tapestry where we are all connected through the threads, the ties that bind us. Mm.
We have created something beautiful here. I love it.
Wow.
I absolutely love it. And I would like to invite people over to your platform as well. I'm going to make a link available in the description for your 4-Minute Friday. If you wish to share with us, I would love if you would, please. What's the inspiration behind it, and what it is that you do creatively on Fridays?
The 4-Minute Fridays is actually a nudge from a mentor of mine, a coach of sorts, and he knows how passionate I am about the environment. And I was hosting an event, a local event, but it was a one-off. And he said, perhaps you need to do something. So I thought, okay, I will do a live. Well, it wasn't even a live video. I'll do a video once a week. So it's called 4-Minute Friday. It is 4 minutes of actual content. Yet last week was a little bit 30 seconds longer, however. And I just explore an idea. So this last week, it was a fun one. It was about music. Mm-hmm. However, I've also touched some very, very difficult conversations about plastic pollution, for example, in the oceans, and the steps that we can take to do so. I've talked about architecture and a more sustainable way of constructing buildings and different ways. And it again bridges the generations from building a cob home with clay and soil to very high-tech domes that are built with bioceramics. So it's kind of the full spectrum of that. So I talk about a lot of different topics that cover primarily talking about the environment, and then other things like technologies that will help us to create a better future. And then I'd also like to say that it's getting close to Earth Day. I'm hoping to release my book, which is an ebook about how to be able to live more sustainably, taking one simple step. Right. And you talked about some of that at the beginning, so that was quite exciting. The book, A Greener Earth, will talk about different R's. So the reusing, the refurbishing, the repairing, recycling, rotting, and things like that. But first we have to reimagine how we can do things and then take the first step, whether that is buying a stainless steel water bottle instead of buying a plastic water bottle. That's one step. And that is one step in the right direction. So that's something that many of us can do, or we can choose to repair or hem our jeans instead of giving the way of buying a new one. So those are the sort of things to talk about on my 4-Minute Friday. Thanks for letting me share.
Oh, I love it. And those are all of the subjects so close to my heart. So lovely, lovely. We have so many conversations to be had from just this single exploration into our friendship, Linda. I'm so grateful for you for coming here today. And I look forward to everything that is going to unfold, and any information that you wish to share where people can follow you when your ebook becomes available. I will link that as well for them.
Perfect. Thank you. It has been such a pleasure. And yes, I can see that this is a start of many, many conversations and perhaps even collaborations in some respect.
Yes. Definitely co-creations.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.